Miller with the Hometown Historian channel. We are back at Coleman's Park. We're actually over here at the children's garden because I'm looking for some more of these signs. I had some clarification on a couple things. I had said when we came through here, I sort of came here with the idea of I was just going to do a quick drive around to show you the park, show you the band shell that's there, the music amphitheater, and the carriage house. And there's another stone house over here known as the Ready House. The original Gatehouse and Caretakers was a stone building that's on the one exit that goes to the right, which I didn't photograph that at all because it is somebody's personal home now. So the new Caretakers, or the Gatehouse, is a White House at the beginning of the park. But a couple things. I had one individual, Mule Skinner, who clarified a couple points, and that's something I always is a good thing to do because I sort of get the material off the surface. I don't always remember things off the top of my head because the original patriarch of the family, Robert Coleman, he moved here from Ireland, and as a young man, I forgot that he worked for a James Old. It was, I believe, Robizonia iron company, who may have even had a slight stake in Cornwall Iron Furnace. The man that owned it, his name was James Old. I had said that Robert Coleman married one of Peter Grubb's daughters. I don't even know if Peter Grubb had daughters. He had two sons that I know of, Peter Jr. and Curtis. Curtis. And Curtis was the older son. Peter, we had talked about Hopewell Forges there along the Hammer Creek. Peter ran that, and Curtis ran the Cornwall Iron Furnace after Peter Grubb passed away. We also went to Tabor Reformed Church, which is where Curtis Grubb was originally buried, but now he got reinterred over at the Hebron Moravian Cemetery. It turns out, actually, Robert Coleman married Ann Old, James Old's daughter. And that was something that Mule Skinner clarified. He also, whether he's the same guy, there's a gentleman named Jack that sent me an email and sent me a map, which is really, really helpful. He sent me to show me where the mansions were, because I said that there had been, I believe, either 3 or 4 homes, mansions that had been up here that had all been razed and demolished. The last one being, I believe, either 1961 or 67, and that's the one that's down on the other side of the carriage house. This estate, if you will, was originally called by the Colemans Mount Lebanon. George Dawson Coleman, he was the one that started all this. He would have been a grandson, possibly a great-grandson of the original Robert Coleman, I believe grandson, and he gave that house, which was, I believe, originally called the Homestead, to Horace Brock, and then it would have been one of his daughters was married to Horace, and then G. Dawson Coleman built a house right in this general region, because where the marker, the pirate treasure map X, is somewhere in between where the Ready House is, which is over there, which is that stone garage, and then the band shell, which was built off of I believe it was Arthur Brock's house, which was over near the tennis court. So there's 3 more. One of them here is this area. I'm trying. He said there's another plaque for each of those houses. I'm having trouble finding them, but I'll at least try as best I can to go to the locations. And now that I know more what I'm looking for, maybe I can find pictures of them specifically, and I'll turn the camera around and show you some of this. I also one thing I wanted to explain is, like, depending on your YouTube channel, especially in this type of niche, which is like a history type thing, there's different levels of research that people put into these things, and with my channel there's different levels of research depending on what I'm videoing. A lot of times I like to sort of go out and explore and go on an adventure and discover this stuff at the same time you guys are. Now I get sort of what you call the topsoil of research, where you get the basics, and I'm not always going to get everything 100% correct, and certainly not get all the information that's available there. So for those of you that are local historians or just know a lot about that particular subject matter, don't feel like you're going to offend me or something like that by putting something on a comment in YouTube or sending me an email. I appreciate that, because one of the big things that matters to me with this channel is that I get things correct, and I try to get all the information. That's why I'm doing a return to Coleman's Park here. It's not a part 2, it's just a return to try to find some of these other things and then talk about a little bit more of the information that since then I've discovered. And I want to say thank you to Jack and to Mule Skinner for that information, for the map. That helps a lot, because it's hard to find some of these things sometimes. The local historical societies usually have a lot of that stuff, but sometimes trying to get in there, and like right now, because of the handicap and because of just being past surgery and just sort of getting my sea legs back, I don't have the energy right now to be going all over the place and trying to do the research. Like, for instance, the research I did for the Blue-Eyed Six, where I researched the heck out of it. Then I went to each of the locations that was pertinent to that discussion that we had in that video, and it was also as a co-op between myself and Cliff. So I really wanted to go out there, and it really felt good. It was a lot of fun. So I'm starting to do more of that again, and that's going to go more into my videos, because I do want to have it be more concise, more on point, and really get that information down to memory, where it's just second nature. Because usually after I sort of bludgeon myself a little bit with the knowledge, I can usually remember it off the top of my head. And I've been doing stuff that's more just going to places that are easy to walk to and that type of stuff. And now that I'm starting to get my health back again, I'm trying to be careful, because I think last week I probably pushed myself maybe a little bit further than I should have, because I was pretty beat after last week. A lot of fun. I also got I think food poisoning, but I'm starting to also think potentially go to the doctor and see if I might have diverticulitis or something got screwed up with my stomach. Because when I was in, they mixed a antibiotic, and it was something that started with an S, that it started to shut my kidneys down when I was in the hospital. Now they got me off of it and got that corrected, and my kidneys are functioning like they're supposed to, but I sort of wonder if that a side effect is it sort of screwed my stomach up pretty bad, because I'm having issues now. If I eat like nuts or something like that, I get aggravated, and so I haven't been feeling that great over the last couple days. So I'm sort of trying to take it a little easy because of that too. But it's just a matter of figuring things out. You know, I've been on so many antibiotics. I had to use so much, Advil for so long because of the amount of pain I was in. I think that stuff all sort of adds up at a point too, and can screw things up. So trying to figure that's the next step, of trying to go get fitted for my shoes tomorrow, have my final appointment at the wound center and get discharged on Thursday, and then it's just going to podiatrist just to keep up on top of things, to make sure that everything's going the way it is. And I just got to be careful especially until I get these shoes. These things aren't made for, just like these boots were made for walking. These shoes are not made for that. These things are made for tiptoeing and being pretty, and I've lost that battle already. But anyways, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of behind my channel. I try to research as much as I can on things, but a lot of stuff is just going there, making people aware, maybe something I just happened upon. I want to go back up to Minersville to film that Minersville station for the third, or it would be the fourth. No, my memory's going to, and that's not the medication. That's just me getting old. Because we did Annville, Donamore, we did both the Lebanon ones. So this will be the fifth station, I believe. Oh no, we did Palmyra too. So it'll be Sorry, it'd be the 6th station. I want to go there because they actually have a locomotive there, and apparently they even, I'll put the site up, and it's very hard to get on because I think they only run it twice a year, December 11th and 12th, and they run sort of like a Santa train. It's specifically for kids, and they say they do a fantastic job with that. Just make it really awesome for the kids because they only have one car on the train. But it was so cool coming around this corner. I was like, that looks like a train station. And then I go past it, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's a full locomotive. So it was cool to be able to just be there and be able to photo it. And it's, you know, because you go to Strasburg, Kempton, excuse me, the local, it's got some spit that went down the wrong tube. Hummelstown, Middletown, some of the local rail stations for me. You know, you're surrounded by all kinds of other. All right, I'm back. You got swallowed a cat or something. Sheesh. But anyways, you don't get to have the type of time and be able to shoot it from the different angles. Like, it's not on and the steam running and all that kind of stuff. But it was really, really cool. So I may go up there again. And also want to start another series driving through these mountain towns because they're just sort of really, really cool. But so I am going to try to drive around here a little bit more. Maybe I can talk to one of the guys that actually works here and see if they can tell me, hey, these are where these other signs are if they exist. Because the Jack had said, we emailed me and said they actually have a plaque for each of them. I've been driving all over the park right now trying to find them, and I haven't found. This is the one I should have been able to find. I don't understand why it wouldn't be right next to the road, but maybe it's here somewhere, and they can tell me where it is, and we'll go from there. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So a lot of history here, and you think about it, it wasn't just the mansions that were here. They had gardens. They had, you know, their stables and all kinds of, like, this had to be an absolutely exquisite place to visit. Like, just beautiful. Because they had Joellen Litz, who's county commissioner here in Lebanon County. She had a video up on her channel of a conversation with Armour Bordner, who I had put that conversation up before when I did the Bordner cabin video. His mom, I guess, worked for, I think, the Brocks, which would have been the very last mansion west, the western part of the port park. And he had always said they got off the rail station and just said how beautiful this area was. I mean, it's a beautiful park, but just to think about these, because this is the one thing I said about the Colemans, like they understood the aesthetics of architecture. They understood the beauty of it. They understood how to use it, the different styles. Like, in everything they did, it could be the simplest building, and they got the architects to do it and do it well and just make it very original and very cool. So unfortunately, none of those buildings still exist. We do have some pictures of them. Like I said, now that I know more what I'm looking for, I can hopefully find the more specific pictures and then tell you this was this mansion. I can put up as well that map, and you can pause it, get it a little bigger, look at it, and then have a general idea where these are. But like I said, 2 of the markers are very easy to find because they're either right on a parking lot or right by the road. Where these other 3 are, hopefully we'll find them, or I can talk to somebody and they can show me where they are if they exist. You could have had something like vandalism happen as too, so, but you'd think there'd be something there that would be the sign that the thing was in the ground pretty solid. But we'll see if we find them, and if we don't, we'll still discuss it, and then I'll do a little bit more and see what I can find and go from there. But anyways, just a couple things I wanted to say and clarify, and also say thank you to Jack and to Mule Skinner, whether they may very well be the same person. I also have been having another individual contact me as of late. He's a lieutenant, this is on YouTube as Lieutenant Frank. I won't give I believe what his name is off of email, because just people want confidentiality and stuff like that. But He's given me a lot of help with the Union Canal stuff as well. So there's a lot of things that I'm getting clarification on. He sent me a ton of maps, which is awesome because that'll give me more things to be able to know exactly where things were, and I can talk about them a little bit more. Because one of the things that holds you back sometimes is when you can't find any information on certain things. I really don't like to go out and do videos on those unless I have something that's concrete, but this gives me something that's concrete. But with that, we're going to get going, and we're going to go search for some more signs, and we'll see if we find them. If we do, we'll be filming those next. If we don't, I'll try to find the individual house pictures of all 5 of the houses and then tell you exactly which ones are which, and we'll go from there. So thank you, everybody. So just to give you a little bit of a view before I try to get up, there's the playground, but I'm in this gazebo here in the children's garden, and you can see not quite gorillas in the mist, but Chuck behind the bushes of what the park looks like here in the center of the park. Right down there is the carriage house, pretty cool building, and I'll go over to the gazebo as well, like the band shell, and see if there's something over there as well, because you never know if something's hidden behind the building or whatever. But this should be where the G. Dawson Coleman house should have been, right in this general region. Haven't found anything yet, but we'll see if we can find something. Hey everybody, so this is going down into lower part of the park, which I was not at. This is actually a sculpture. I'll put who it's by then, because off the top of my head, it's a guy from out in Colorado. But Jared Oderick, who's from Lebanon, Pennsylvania, played at Penn State playing football, and also played for several NFL teams. Did very well for himself, and he's very involved now, like in the arts and that type of stuff. And this is, I believe it's Conversating Myself, or Conversation with Myself. Really cool piece of art, sculpture. But I got a chance to talk to some of the guys that take care of the park here, and there are 3 additional signs. There's 5 total, and coolly they told me where everything is. So I had read about this on Lebtown. Just a very, very neat sculpture. But over here is the 3rd, and I don't know how I missed the one, but there is one that is where I did the beginning of this video. There's one apparently right there, and I just completely missed it. So it is what it is. I'm a special boy. Oh, excuse me. So at this location, and there you can see the house itself. At this location, B. Dawson Coleman, 1865-1933, son of G. Dawson and Deborah Brown Coleman, and his wife Ann Churchill Coleman, 1869-1915, erected a 4-story limestone residence. It was completed by late 1890. This mansion, or the mansion considered to be a place of modern elegance, contained 30 rooms, including a library and a dining room. Here, a portrait of General George Washington, painted by Gilbert Stuart at the request of Mr. Coleman's great-grandfather Robert Coleman, was displayed. Among the many financially related positions held by Mr. Coleman during his lifetime was chairman and president of the First National Bank of Lebanon, which was founded by his father. After the death of Mrs. Coleman in 1915, the mansion was occupied by their chauffeur, John Wolfe, who resided here for 19 years. The death of B. Dawson Coleman in 1933 initiated a series of events which led family members to transfer their properties to the city of Lebanon in 1936 for the creation of Coleman Memorial Park. The B. Dawson Coleman mansion was among the properties included in the transfers. This mansion was torn down in 1944. The original bronze plaque at this location, one of 2 erected in the park, was donated in memory of their grandfather Bertrand Dawson Coleman by Helen Harrison Eyre and Ann Harrison Wallace in 1996. This particular marker was put up in 2018. But you just look at the trees. That's one thing too, like here, if you want to see like a wide variety of types of trees and nature, they planted, like they had beautiful gardens here, but they also brought in all kinds of non-native trees that were just gorgeous. And they also brought in a chuck, who's amazing as well, but that's another day. But anyways, it's just very, very cool. And then you have something like this, the modern art sculpture is really neat as well. So that's the third of the signs. There's another one down this direction somewhere, so we're gonna go down that way to see if we can find that, and then we'll run around everything and then see if we can find that last sign, which is in the middle of the park, and that's the G. Dawson Coleman. And G. Dawson Coleman's the one that donated the homestead. He's the one that started this whole park or estate, which they called Mount Lebanon. It's really beautiful. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you in a second. All right, we are here at the fourth sign, or the furthest west sign. This is actually where a friend got married. And then here's the last one, which I remember this picture here of that house. At this location stood the residence of John Pembrok. I believe this is the home that Armour Bordner's mother worked at, because I remember the name Brock. He was 1879 to 1928, and his wife Pauline Biddle Brock, 1880 to 1968, affectionately known as Boxwood. It served as the residence for the Brocks and their 4 children, Anne, Horace, Deborah, and Alexander. John Pembrok, a graduate of Yale in 1900, began his working career with the Pennsylvania Steel Company at Steelton. He later became vice president of the American Iron and Steel at Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Once the American Iron and Steel was purchased by Bethlehem Steel Company, he became general manager of the latter's works at Lebanon and Reading, PA. In 1928, during a trip to Rome, Italy, with his wife and daughter, Mr. Brock expired unexpectedly. He was laid to rest at St. James the Less Cemetery, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The mansion was designed by the Philadelphia architectural firm of Bissell and Sinkler. The land on which the residence stood was purchased on October 2nd, 1908 from Mr. Brock's uncle, Bertram Dawson Coleman, and I believe that's the home that was just up that way, who also had a residence in the park. Contractor William Weekle, 1867 to 1910, from Lebanon, Pennsylvania, is credited with the construction. The mansion was completed in early 1909. In 1919 June, the firm of Andorra from Chestnut Hill, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was hired by Mrs. Brock to develop the grounds around the mansion, including what is known as Boxwood Gardens. The gardens were filled with flowering dogwoods, rhododendrons, evergreens, and shrubs, numerous types of flowers and roses. The boxwood came from the grubs and other properties around Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. They were purchased by Mrs. Brock and trucked to Lebanon for installation. After the death of her husband, Mrs. Brock continued to use Brockwood in the summer. She sold the property to the city of Lebanon in 1936 for $18,000. The mansion would remain standing until its demolition in 1939, having graced this area for only 30 years. I'm going to take a quick peek over. That's where they got married, was right there with the colonnade, or whatever you call it. But this was some of the gardens that they had. This is really, really pretty, but this is a lot of times gets used for weddings and such, because it's a perfect venue for that. Yeah, so much history here, and so much of the history of some of these beautiful places is just so short-lived, because, you know, it just was what it was. Is how they did things back then, I guess you could say. And so the steps are still here, or I guess like the mansion probably would have stood like right in here. But yeah, a lot of it had to do, there was no why things got torn down was because there wasn't a trust left to maintain these buildings, so therefore the buildings, it was cheaper to tear them down, which, like I said, is a shame. But you can also understand the city of Lebanon's position. You know, it was the last one, like I said, the homestead just started to fall into such disrepair that they finally had no choice but to tear that down. But the other 4 mansions, it sounds like they all got torn down before even it became 1940. So, but yeah, just a beautiful area. So much to visit here, so much to see. So yeah, get a chance to stop by Coleman's Park and check this out. But this is made specifically for reservations, like I said, a lot of times, like weddings and that type of stuff. But cool. We'll see you at the last marker. And here's why I missed this one right here in the middle of the park. It's actually facing the other way along a trail here. So I was looking literally at this thing and completely missed it. I guess, and these are some of the foundations of something with the house. I'm sure there's a whole slew of them here. So this is probably right here where the front of the house would have been, right sitting right here. And there is the actual house. This is at this location stood the home of G. Dawson Coleman and Deborah Brown Coleman. He was 1825 to 1878. She was 1832 to 1894. This 3-story, 40-room, limestone structure was built in 1853 for Mr. Coleman, the owner and operator of North Lebanon Furnace. So this is actually the homestead. That makes sense. This is the last one that got torn down. This contained, it contains such unique interior features as a grand staircase, stained glass windows. This makes me sad reading this. Stained glass windows, 9 baths, a billiard room added in 1888, and a secret room concealed behind false bookcases and an iron door. Surrounding the house, one could find a large greenhouse, grapery, and a propagating house. A children's garden, which the children's garden is right over there. That's where I was sitting earlier. And I literally focused the camera right over here and didn't see this sign. A small garage, which is probably the garage right over there behind Chuck, which is called the Ready House. And a large carriage house, which is the big brick structure, rounded out the structure on the property. The Colemans were connected both in prominent social circles and with political and business figures of the day. Distinguished visitors to the homestead included such individuals as Franklin B. Gowan, president of the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, famous publishers J.B. and J.S. Lippincott, former Civil War generals Doubleday, Gregg, Sickles, and Slocum, and even President Ulysses S. Grant in 1873. The homestead was last occupied by the Coleman's son Edward, who died in 1933, and by their daughter Fanny Brown Coleman, whose death in 1935 closed out the era of Coleman occupation here. The mansion, the last remaining one from the Coleman occupation in the park, was demolished in 1961. Yeah, this was a history lesson. I've really enjoyed this. But yeah, these must be sort of like foundations of the porches and stuff like that still remain. Very, very cool. Well, I'm glad, and you know what? I want to say a special thank you to Jack once again, and Mule Skinner. Whether you actually skin mules or not, I'm not sure. I'm sure that's fun. But this video is possible because of your guys' help or your help. I really do appreciate that, because it cleared things up for me, and I enjoy that, because it was sort of like, always, if something isn't quite cleared up for me, it bothers me. I'm anal retentive in that way. And to be able to have that sort of closure of what was actually here and where, and it just didn't make sense to me that there weren't more bronze signs. One was right in front of my face, and I hadn't gone down into the west end of the park, because they have these things that cross over those roads, and it says do not enter, and they sometimes have them closed, sometimes they have them open. I wasn't sure whether I was allowed to go in or not, but when I talked to the caretakers, that clarified that for me. But once again, this is a revisit to Coleman Park, and we got to clarify that this location, this is where the homestead was, the oldest home that the patriarch of Mount Lebanon of the Coleman family for this is where his home was. And there are quite famous people, including President Ulysses S. Grant, that came here and visited, which is really, really quite awesome. But with that, I'll say thank you for coming along on this journey. And as always, we will see you all about town. Thanks, everybody.